Hi there, traders. This is Brad Gilbert with the FX Market Insight for Thursday, the 29th of October. Right now, as we inch closer towards the US elections, the COVID pandemic has sort of really increased and intensified. Now, that's really creating a risk-off or a race towards safe havens. The yen has gone up against the dollar, and what we're seeing is the dollar index itself, the dollar, is actually becoming the safe haven, even though that's where the problem is. Very similar to the GFC and pretty standard for these markets. So what we're looking at is, and that's going to impact a number of different things. Obviously, the US dollar is going to rally. That's one thing. Another thing will be, and I've noticed this, actually, let me just bring you across. This is one of the key parts to identifying the trading opportunities early on in the week as well is dollar CAD, right? Dollar CAD has been one pair, and I was looking at this on Monday, but the COVID situation has really come into play here. Now, COVID, right, increased lockdowns equals a reduced demand on oil equals lower oil prices. So this is a bit of a double whammy for dollar CAD. And if I just take you over to the charts to give you a real good look at this, it's one of those sort of like perfect storms, where the dollar's rallying because of the safe haven profile. Also, due to that COVID increase, there's less demand for oil. Oil's falling. It's only fallen $2 or $3, but it's enough to really get things moving along. And if I just come back and show you where this thing was not first thing Monday, but during Monday, it's rallied like 200 points, almost 200 points up to here through the course of the week. Now, that's a little bit of luck involved in that, but the whole trade was, if you go back to Monday's Market Insight, you'll see that I'm talking about dollar CAD looks like it's the only pair with a real good setup. Now, talking about good setups, I'll come into the charts in a second, but we are starting to see the dollar index, dollar yen, dollar CAD, and euro pretty much the only pairs that are ready to play. And that's a little bit weird because you think, well, isn't dollar going up? Well, yes, but not against dollar yen. And that's where you can sort of isolate that safe haven profile of all this risk that's in the market around the elections, around the increase in COVID across the US and across Europe and across everywhere else. Amongst other things, that is creating a bit of a yen safe haven play. So, and you'd expect with the dollar index going up to euro to be going down. That's a pretty good confirmation that we may be onto something a bit bigger than just these initial moves, especially when they're breaking through. Well, we've got short-term direction as well as breaking through longer-term trend lines. I know we've been seeing this a lot, like knee-jerk reactions, and it gets through those longer-term trend lines and then turns around. But I'll tell you what, every time you see it, you got to start to get a little bit excited. This could be the start of something big. I've really got to sort of err on the side of caution. With that US election next Tuesday, I can't see things getting away from us just yet. All right, now let me just come back to the charts and just give you a bit of a run through. I mean, this is pretty stock standard. They're all telling us a story, right? So Kiwi and Aussie are still trading sideways in a pretty big range. Now, they've had independent events happening. They were sort of looking quite strong, but you know what? They're caught up in the whole dollar profile and the dollar is dominating, but it hasn't broken through any trend lines yet. So don't get excited just yet. Dollar yen, as you can see, it is sort of cruising to the downside. This is one of the last trend lines around. It's just come back and retesting. You've got to think it would keep going the way the news is sort of streaming through the market. Now, here's euro. It's broken down through a really nice trend line here. It's 117.60. It's coming back to test that trend line. This is like textbook technical analysis, right? Normal market conditions. If you're looking to get short there on that retracement, ready for the next move down, all we're looking for is we know momentum is stalling from one North American session to the next, and that's my concern at this point. But euro is breaking down. Sterling, well, there's a lot going on here, right? It's a bit of dollar strength, but also don't forget there's talk of a Brexit deal itching closer towards that, and sterling's like all over the place. So really, if I got rid of that trend line here, it's still within recent ranges, and just keep your eye on it. But it's not really doing it. I mean, it's doing a lot, but unpredictably, and that's what we're trying to avoid. Here's dollar CAD. This is where it was sort of initially Monday. It's come back, retested that trend line, and shot to the top side. So dollar CAD, one of those trades for the week. You got to think CAD yen would be coming into play with that as well. with the oil trade as oil falls. All right, guys. Well, that's where we are. So, you know, there's opportunities here. What you've got to try and isolate is where you can sort of see momentum. And I would probably encourage you at this point, coming closer towards the US elections, you know, if you see 20, 30, 50 points on the table, probably take the cash, right? The markets are jitterish. You got to keep an eye on the equity markets. Now, the equity markets are getting hammered, okay? Man, this is like well overdue. They're so overinflated. You know, what's to say what happens if Biden wins or if Trump wins? You know, if Trump wins, you'd think that the equities would rally, but who really knows? We won't know till after the fact. And a little bit of a weird one here. If you're looking at the dollar across the board here, what impact is it having across the major pairs? Well, it's a bit mixed, and that's where there's a bit of confusion. Obviously, the dollar's going up. Well, it's going up against the euro. You know, the dollar index is going up. Dollar yen, it's going down. Dollar CAD, it's going up. So there's not unison movement across the board. To me, the dollar index is a pair that, like, it's an instrument that you can trade that actually trades exceptionally well technically. And you can see here where it's broken above the trend line. I'd say the market is not willing just yet to take it on, you know, up towards 95 or 94, 95. They want to see the continued momentum. So how do we see that? Well, if you're watching in the North American session, keep an eye on the equity markets. If they get hammered again, the dollar is going to continue to rally, right? The dollar index in particular, and it's at pretty good levels. Looking at the daily chart here, this is the start of potentially a bigger move. As I said, we have got the election coming up, which may stall things. But once again, we've got a bit of a setup. If anything, go in with a small trade. If you're not confident, if you're not sure at all, then just sit on the sidelines and wait for the better opportunity. All right, guys, have a good trade day. Cheerio.